what you need to know.
Here's star guard Klay Thompson suffered a torn right Achilles tendon during a workout yesterday in Southern California and is out for the season. Thompson missed all of last season after tearing the ACL in his left knee during the 2019 NBA Finals. Shams Charania reports the world champion Los Angeles Lakers waving guard Quinn Cook. Charania also reporting that Milwaukee is waving forward Ersan Ilyasova. Extra notable because Ilyasova had been part of a proposed sign-and-trade deal that would have sent Bogdan Bogdanovic to Milwaukee from Sacramento. Chris Haynes reporting that the Brooklyn Nets will not pick up the $5 million team option on guard Garrett Temple, making him a free agent. And in Major League Baseball, the Milwaukee Brewers have promoted Matt Arnold to be their new general manager. I'm Isaac Lowenkron.
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It's time for the Rundown with Rob Sanders.
Well, we're waiting.
Welcome into the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. And I'm happy to go out to the phones and welcome in former Clemson guard Terrence Oglesby. Terrence, welcome back to the show, man. Appreciate you making some time for us.
Yeah, appreciate it. I haven't been on in a while, Rob. Glad to be back here with you.
That's my fault. It's not your fault. It's just I've been silly. So to be completely honest with you, in football seasons, it's a grind, man. I know it sounds like I'm like some crazy fool with that, but it just seems like football season, especially the coaching change down here, it seems like every week it's just like, wow, it's crazy. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the NBA draft, which last night following you on Twitter was great because you basically it's almost like you broke down every pick in tweet by tweet, talking about players going here and there and everywhere else. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But I also want to talk about your ACC breakdown, which is, and I'm not just saying this because you and I are friends on here, man. It's one of the most in-depth breakdowns of a conference that I've read. And it's like, why didn't he do the SEC? That way he could have done all of my homework for me for both conferences that I deal with on the show. But your ACC breakdown where people can get it online, man. First of all, tell us, how did you come up with how you wanted to do this? Did you just didn't see something out there that was that in depth and you decided, hey, I want to go after it and go this route?
No, to be honest with you, I was taking notes so that I could do video with you and do radio with people here in town. I live in Clemson, for those who don't know, but just so I could pick up different radio spots and be able to cover different games and know what the heck I'm talking about. You know, my end goal is to be able to call games with the ACC network and maybe be a part of some of those things. And I was just taking notes. And the more I was taking notes, I was like, why in the world am I not putting this together and selling it? It doesn't make any sense because I think there's a lot of good information here. And, you know, one thing led to another. I learned how to put together some of the pictures and how I could manage some of the different content and that way. And it worked out really well. And Rob, you've read it. I think it's something that people will enjoy, and it's not overly difficult to read.
It's not. And that's the best part about it is that you can sit down and read it in about, I don't know, a half hour at most. But when you leave and you're done with it, you know something about every ACC team. And that's what makes it so cool because you can do it in one evening and then move your way on, and you know a little bit about every team in the conference. But your breakdown has Clemson at 7th and the possibility to make the tournament this season. You know, it seems like, and you mentioned this in your breakdown, that the Tigers have one of the more talented teams that Brad Brownell has had. What do they got to do to break through to make the tournament this year?
Well, they have to shoot it much better. Last year, there were only 2 players that shot above 40%, and that was Alex Hemingway and Amir Sims. Amir is able to get a lot of shots off because he's dragging 5 men out. 5 men typically aren't very comfortable guarding on the perimeter. So he's able to get some easier shots. Hemingway didn't play enough to really make that big of a dent. They need the other guys to shoot it better. Clyde Trapp needs to have a much better year from the field shooting the ball this season for the Tigers to be good. And you need a little luck. You need Chase Hunter to be able to stay healthy for the full season. If the Tigers are able to shoot around 34-35% from 3 as a team, as many as they take, Tigers are going to be a tournament team. If they can get through that first half of the conference schedule, without being too badly damaged, I think that, this is a very good team, maybe a 12, 13 win conference team. So it's just a matter of, one, are you going to hit shots? Two, can you guard in the one-on-one situations on defense? And three, can you stay healthy and can you stay away from the vid? Baby, you got to stay away from the vid.
The vid is something that I wanted to get your opinion on that as well. With moving the NCAA tournament basically to Indianapolis, do you like that idea?
You know what? Selfishly, I'm pretty fired up about it because if Clemson makes it, I'll be up there and I'll be able to catch as many games as possible. So to me, that sounds like a great thing. But I understand the logistics of this thing are going to be a nightmare if you have to send people all over the country. You're going to have 68 teams and however many individuals travel with those teams. And it's going to be all over that Indianapolis area. And it's going to be pretty difficult. They say a bubble. It's hard to have a bubble with, 68 teams.
Yeah, it's a lot different than, what was it, the 8 teams for the NBA, basically, from each conference. I mean, it just, wow. I wonder how they're going to do it, but I thought the same thing about the NBA bubble. I was like, there's no way this will work. But you know what? The NBA did it right, and they didn't have any problems. I mean, they almost had a flawless execution on that bubble.
Yeah, outside of Lou Williams venturing outside traditional hangout spots, I think it worked out pretty well. They were able to keep everybody in one spot, and nobody tested positive, which was a good thing. But that's hard to do, man. And I think the NBA lost a lot of money doing that. But that was something I think that the people needed something to watch on TV, and I'm glad the NBA was able to do that.
I completely agree with you on that. But with your ACC breakdown, though, tell folks how to get that, because you break down every team, breakout players, and just all kinds of stuff. If folks want to get your breakdown, how can they go about doing that?
Yeah, you go to letitflywithtO.com and you can purchase through there. It's $10.99 for the PDF and $12.99 for the paper copy plus the PDF. And put in promo code Clemson Sports Talk and you'll be able to get 10% off. So that'll knock it down to right about $9.50, $9.80, depending on which version you purchase. But it's worth the buy. I think a lot of people will enjoy reading this. I hope it takes longer than 30 minutes to read, to be honest with you, Rob, because it took me a little bit longer. Maybe that's because I have to sound everything out. I don't know if it's my intelligence level.
I speed read, brother. I'm sorry. I'm with you. It may take a little longer for some folks, but for me, I'm just like, whoa, let's go. But then again, I'm like an overzealous reader. And I read so much every day anyway. But when I have something like this that I'm really into, I can just zip right through it. So I say 30 minutes. It may take you a little longer than that, but no more than an evening, though.
No more than an evening. Yeah. And I also wanted people to be able to carry it with them 2 games, and then for the information about that team that Clemson's playing to be directly applicable, so you can know what to look for. This, to me, Rob, has developed into a basketball magazine for a football fan. Something that's it covers the basic things. It gives you details about each player. But for the most part, it's easy to read. That was my goal. And I'm going to dip more into the SEC next year, this magazine. I did the entire thing by myself, and it took the better part of about 2.5, 3 months. So it's just to learn everything and then be able to get all the information down. So I'm going to dive into the SEC as well next year, but I'm hoping that it can be something for the common fan, not just the basketball nut.
Yeah, well, I think it can satisfy both audiences. And I like the fact that I can have it on my iPhone, and if I go to a game or whatever, I can just look at it and be like, oh, this is what I've got here, there, and everywhere else. So very, very cool stuff. Make sure you go and check that out. Now, I've got some NBA draft questions for you, Terrence. And the first one is, with the stuff that has come out about the drive that Anthony Edwards has, he said that he wanted to be a football player and he's interested in music, and almost like he settled for basketball. If you were a GM, would you have taken him number 1 overall?
For the team that the Timberwolves have, yes. The only problem is there is no leadership on that team. D'Angelo Russell and Karl Anthony Towns are both, they're pretty well-known loafers as well. I mean, there's a large part of the season where they'll play at about 80%. And when you put a kid like Anthony Edwards into that system, I mean, it worries me a little bit. Now, they did trade for Ricky Rubio, who's known as a great locker room guy and a professional. but it's going to make it difficult. But as far as immediate impact and ability to score right away, Anthony Edwards fits the bill. And the Timberwolves are very talented. They could make a run and have a few good seasons if they keep this same core. But he's somebody that desperately needed a veteran player in his ear, because I think, if you're willing to come out and say that basketball isn't your first love a week outside of the draft, there's some maturity issues.
Right.
I don't see how in the world there's any way to argue that.
But you can't coach drive. I mean, you can't make somebody play hard. In my opinion, you can't give them that bulldog type mentality of, I'm going to go out there and I want to beat the snot out of whoever I'm playing. I just don't think you can coach that into somebody. Do you agree?
No, I'd rather have to pull a horse back than to spur him forward. That was how it was when I was a coach. But, Edwards, the reports on him contradict what he's been saying the last week. It's almost like who's in his ear telling me, and be a little bit more professional. But I think one of the best things that LaMelo Ball's company did, or the people in his circle did, was, hey man, keep your answers short. You may sound like a little simple, but keep your answers short, and then make sure that there's nothing that people can run away with. And LaMelo Ball did that, and he was able to get to be the third pick in the draft, and he's going to have a heck of a career as well. But I was disappointed in Anthony Edwards. I think he's a supreme talent. I can't believe that he came out and said some of those things, especially when they're about to invest about $30 million into him. To
me, it was just like a turnoff for him. But, I'm not the one up there making decisions. And you talked about LaMelo Ball in Charlotte, and I've had this adage for a while that Michael Jordan was one of the greatest players ever, but his record as a GM and owner is less than stat. Did you like the pick of him getting LaMelo Ball to go up there to play for the Hornets?
It's going to be a good fit for LaMelo. He's already an elite passer. A lot of people, including Hollinger from The Athletic, everybody's had him pegged as the best player in the draft, and quite frankly, it's not even close. They were saying that they should have ran to the podium and drafted him. The Hornets have long had a lot of wing players that need somebody to be able to facilitate. And he's going to be able to come in and do that day one. 6'7", skinny frame, still maturing, but an elite passer with both hands who is able to play the pick and roll at an extraordinary level, considering I think he just turned 19 years old. I think I'm not on board saying he's the best player in the draft. I think out of those top three, there's only one guy that's a for sure all-star in his second year, and I think that's James Wiseman. But I think his ceiling is way up there simply because he's somebody that's going to be able to control the pace and find a lot of shooters on that Hornets team.
You mentioned Wiseman. Do you think the league is getting away from the traditional big man? And they were talking about that a little bit last night, where, having a player that's like Wiseman, I mean, obviously you can't coach somebody to be taller, but is the league kind of getting away from that, and he's almost like a unicorn type player?
Well, yeah, it's obvious the league is getting away from that. But, I mean, this kid's David Robinson. He's DeAndre Jordan with an offensive game is what he is. And he's got supreme size, supreme athleticism. He's 7'1" with a 7'6" or 7'7" wingspan. And he's got enough skill to be able to lead the break. And he's going to be able to pass the ball in Golden State's offense. And he's going to be able to find different holes. He's an immediate impact guy. And I think regardless of what happened with Klay Thompson, I think they were going to go with Wiseman at 2 anyway.
Just an interesting pick there. And for Rob in Columbia, what did you think of Chris Paul getting traded to the Suns? I like it because it moves Devin Booker to being basically the 2 guard. I know that they had Ricky Rubio there, but that Suns backcourt is pretty good.
Yeah, I thought that Chris Paul should have gotten MVP last year. I thought he was more important to his team than anybody else in the league. I know that's a strong statement considering how good Giannis and LeBron both were, but you take him off that Thunder team, they're not even a playoff team. They're in the early lottery, and he's able to get them to the playoffs. Chris Paul at 35 years old is still a top 5 point guard in the NBA. And then you add in Jalen Smith, who's a human pogo stick who can spread the floor. They already have DeAndre Ayton, the first pick overall last year. Devin Booker's turned into an absolute stud. I could see them being a 3-4 seed in next year's Western Conference playoffs.
It'll make Ron Columbia happy.
I bet it would.
As he keeps buying the keeps buying the NBA League Pass, hoping his sons will do well. And then now it seems like they've got some players to do it. And my final question for you this afternoon, there's a coaching search going on in Columbia, and you've had plenty of guys that have coached you, and of course you coached yourself. If you were down at South Carolina, what's the first thing that you would look for in getting a new coach? I know there's two different sports here, but I mean, you need a leader of men. And is that what you look for first when you go out there to find a new coach?
A guy with an established track record as far as culture is concerned, somebody who's been able to bring guys together, I think is a big thing. I was a little bit shocked when they hired Muschamp because he was such a failure at Florida too. I was a little blown away that they took him, but at the same time, I think the guy from Coastal should be a good pick. If I were South Carolina, I would venture away from being a second chance you when it comes to coaches. I would more lean for somebody who's up and coming, who's got energy, who's going to bring enthusiasm to the program, and a program that has been good but not great for a long time and have just dipped low here lately with Muschamp. But there's some candidates out there, and there's not going to be a ton of jobs available. And I think the guy from Coastal will be a good pick. And I really want them to kind of divert from what they've done in the past with Spurrier or Muschamp and giving a bunch of guys a second chance. They really need to give somebody their first chance and really swing for the fences here.
Let me ask you this, though. With that theory, though, the coaches that are like Muschamp, the defensive-minded, kind of aggressive towards players, is that era of coaches kind of going by the wayside, and you need more of I hate to use this term, but player coaches to get to the young men that are playing now?
Well, positivity beats negativity in any sport. I mean, if you're able to build, and let's keep in mind too, Rob, like these are 18 to 22-year-old. I'm going to call them kids because they're not paying their own bills yet, but these are young adults who still need direction, and they want somebody along for the ride with them, not pointing and telling them where to go and screaming at them. And, those days are done. Look at what Dabo's been able to do. Now, does he get onto him? Yeah, but he also puts his arms around him. And that's you're starting to see more and more that the most successful coaches outside of the obvious down there at Alabama, but a lot of these guys are putting their arms around guys and really kind of helping them through the process and making it a we, not me and you deal.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's just kind of where it's going to go, man. It's interesting to see that because, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to go play for Bobby Knight just because Bobby Knight was the best. I liked Bobby Knight and Rick Pitino and guys like that, and it just seems like we're kind of going away from that mentality of, the coaches that are like that. So, but hey, I appreciate you talking a little bit of football stuff with me on that and how the Gamecocks should go, but. As far as your ACC breakdown, tell folks where to get that and where to listen to your podcast.
Okay, so for the magazine, go to letitflywiththeo.com. Make sure you put in coupon code Clemson Sports Talk. You'll get 10% off either one that you choose. And then tonight at 7 o'clock, you can check it out, Let It Fly with Terrence Oglesby. It's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, any major platform. We're going to be streaming it live, so you'll be able to ask questions and get into it. We'll be able to get into conversations that way. It should be about an hour long, about 7 to 8, 8:15. And then I'm excited about it. We've gotten over 11,000 viewers so far in 3 episodes, so it's growing pretty quickly. And I think it's a good show. We're going to look ahead a little bit to Mississippi State through the Tigers play coming up here next Wednesday.
All right, man. Tell folks where they can also find you on Twitter to last night it was like NBA draft class for me, but tell folks where they can find you on Twitter as well.
That's it, at Coach TO22, and then you'll be able to also view the show tonight from that address as well, at Coach TO22.
All right, Terrence, man. Hey, I appreciate you joining us on the rundown today, buddy. It's awesome to have you back on the air with us.
Awesome, Rob. Thank you for having me.
All right, there you go. Terrence Oglesby, the former Clemson guard, joining us here on the rundown. And I had him on because guess what? Next week, Clemson basketball starts. November the 25th, they're playing Mississippi State at a neutral site. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We got to go into hoops mode. I know if you're a Gamecock fan, you're like, yeah, let's go into hoops mode. Let's start talking basketball. So we'll talk a little bit about the Gamecocks as well as they get set up for their season. I think that both South Carolina and Clemson will make the NCAA tournament this season. And I'm telling you that before the season even starts, so we can come back in March when everybody's probably going to be in Indianapolis. I think that we're going to have 2 teams in the NCAA tournament from our state. And we could talk about some of the smaller schools as well, but the 2 big schools from South Carolina, I think both will be in the NCAA tournament. I'm more over the top with Frank Martin's team because AJ Lawson is outstanding, and I think they're going to be really good. But I really like Clemson too with Amir Sims, all ACC first team selection, and they've got some great guys. Nick Honor is going to be really good for them. He's probably going to come off the bench, the transfer from Fordham, and he's a guy that can really shoot the 3 and really guide that offense. Alamir Dawes is also blossoming as a player as well, so it's going to be neat to have basketball again. I'm a big basketball hoops head anyway, but I'm looking forward to basketball season, even though I know we're right in the heart of football season. Kind of wanted to get that out there before we get too in the mix here with the rest of the season wrapping up. We are going to talk football. We've got Tyler Crowder coming on with us from Kicking with Crowder, and we'll talk with him in a little bit, about 3:30. But we'll have more of the rundown for you in just a moment. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Share in the spirit of giving during this year's Share Your Holiday Food Drive. You can donate safely by either texting Share Food to 44321 or visit harvesthope.org. As always, drop off your donations at First Baptist Church in Columbia, Thursday, December 3rd. Share your holiday by helping others. From Harvest Hope, watch Fox, and your friends at Fox Sports Radio 1400.
David was in big trouble with the IRS.
At first, I only owed a few thousand, but each time I got a letter, it was worse. I was going to lose everything, my savings, my house, and after this year, it was out of control.
Then David called the tax experts at getataxlawyer.com.
I couldn't believe it. I met with them, we looked at the numbers, and right away they were like, oh yeah, it looks like you're qualified to save GetATaxLawyer.com fought the IRS for me.
GetATaxLawyer.com specialists the experience to go in swinging and come out a winner.
There's no way I could have paid those tax bills. GetATaxLawyer.com helped my family when we needed it most. No more threats, no debt, no worry. Should have called way sooner.
Thousands have discovered what David did. GetATaxLawyer.com can help settle the debt and get you a fresh start. Don't mess with the IRS. Call 800-290-8160. That's 800-290-8160. GetATaxLawyer.com. 800-290-8160.
Ever had that small crack in your windshield that turned into a very large crack overnight? Hi, I'm Ray.
And I'm Mary Ann, and we're with Absolute Glass.
We are your only local high-end auto glass specialist in the Midlands, used by high-end car dealerships. And we absolutely have you covered.
Whether it's a small or big crack, you could be confident in our certified technicians to get the job done right the first time.
Visit AbsoluteGlassInc.com for a quote or call 951-7200.
That's AbsoluteGlassInc.com or 951-7200.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working today? Taking on that next oil change yourself is a great idea. We can help you get started. Right now, you can get 5 quarts of Castrol Edge full synthetic motor oil and an STP extended life oil filter for just $31.99. You can even get it all fast your way with our next day delivery or free same-day store pickup. Getting the job done just got easier. Restrictions and details at AutoZone.com.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome back to the Rundown. Follow Rob on Twitter at RobSoundsGood.
Well, welcome back to the Rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. You know, there's a storm brewing down at LSU. The football team is getting some scrutiny following a report on abuse allegations against the program. Earlier this week, USA Today reported that LSU ignored the law in handling assault allegations against players in the program. So, yeah, we had that report a couple of days ago. And with that, I anytime you hear a report like that, you want to hear both sides of the story. Okay? But the governor of Louisiana is now responding. And when the governor of a state responds, generally it's time to kind of pay some attention to it. So John Bell Edwards, in an official statement, said he found the accusations from USA Today to be deeply troubling. He stated every act of sexual violence and abuse are, quote, unacceptable. He called on LSU to conduct a thorough, independent, and transparent investigation into the allegations, and he called for significant consequences if LSU is found to have committed any wrongdoing. Here's his statement. Let's be clear. Every act of sexual violence and abuse is unacceptable. The allegations and accusations presented in the USA Today story are deeply troubling. LSU must conduct a thorough, independent, and transparent investigation of the serious issues that have been raised. If this investigation finds any wrongdoing or concludes that violence or misconduct, there should be significant consequences. Nothing is more important than the safety of all members of the LSU community. It is necessary that LSU addresses these issues promptly to protect its students and to assure the trust and confidence of the students, faculty, staff, alumni, and the larger LSU community. So a number of football players from the Ed Orgeron era have been accused of abuse and assault, with former running back Darius Geis being the biggest name brought up. LSU's released a statement of its own denouncing sexual assault and abuse. Allegations against the program really don't paint the picture of actions against matching their words. And you know what? It may be months or even years before a full investigation is completed. When you really stop and look at this, though, the big thing with this is that when you look at one of the big accusations is that they took Darius Geis's name in a recently released police report, basically out of it. So they took his name, that basically censored it out of the whole program. So with that just doesn't look good. So now they're basically going to have to, it's almost like they're going to have to come out with the rest of it. USA Today is suing for the full record. So we'll see how that shakes out. And I tell you what, man, you talk about the downfall of a program and basically haven't even been a year yet since they won the national title. They went from on top of the world, talks that could be the best team ever, to they may finish with 2 wins this year, and they may be on probation later on if this stuff has come out. So see how that works for a while. And it's going to take a while, maybe take a year or whatever. But it's going to be a mess down at LSU for a while. And, they're playing Arkansas this weekend. That's a team that is on the rise and could beat them. I think Arkansas is favored by a point. We talked at the beginning of the season that Arkansas may not win a game. Arkansas may win against LSU, the defending national champion. If there's anything that says 2020 is the weirdest year ever, throw that into the mix. I mean, you could have LSU, as I said, the defending national champion, losing to Mississippi State, Mizzou, and Arkansas in the same year. If that doesn't tell you anything, man, I got nothing. And by the way, I wanted to throw this out there too. I know South Carolina's looking for their new football coach. There's a lot of fans that are thinking, oh man, this is going to be 3, 4, 5 year process. I looked at the numbers last night. Now, I don't know who all's going to stay or who all's going to go. And these numbers are going to change just a little bit. But the Gamecocks have a top 20 roster overall in the country. They're like number 20. So, I mean, they're pretty good on that front. All right. Now, a lot of it skews towards the defensive side of the ball. I get that. But the reality is that it's not like the cupboard's completely bare. So whoever comes in here is not, I mean, they're going to have to recruit, obviously, and work hard. And they're essentially losing one recruiting class, which can be something that can set your program back for a long time. But when it comes down to it, though, it's not a completely empty glass down there in Columbia. And it wouldn't shock me if South Carolina got the right coach that came in and trampolined them, sort of like what Mizzou, who comes in here on Saturday, has done with Eli Drinkowitz, and what Arkansas has done with Sam Pittman. Two teams going into the season, we thought, yeah, they're not going to win very many games. I think that with South Carolina, the line will be out on them early that, they're not going to be very good. They may shock some teams for next season because they've got some talent. And a lot of it depends on if they can get a coach in here who can make the kids believe just a little bit that, hey, maybe you're a little bit better than just being South Carolina, the perennial middle-of-the-pack SEC East team. We'll take your calls when we come back. You're listening to The Rundown. Tyler Crowder joins us, the host of Kicking It with Crowder. I look forward to talking with him about some bets for this weekend. That for you and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400.
This is Chris Collinsworth. Here's trending on the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings.
The Hornets have a new look after last night's NBA draft. Point guard LaMelo Ball and Duke center Vernon Carey were taken at picks 3 and 32. North Carolina star Cole Anthony was drafted by Orlando, while Duke's Trey Jones went to the Spurs. Cassius Stanley was taken by Indiana. And a big night in the NFC West tonight when Seattle hosts Arizona to kick off Week 11 of the NFL season. Both teams are 6-3. I'm Scott Davidson.
Get in on all this week's action. Download the DraftKings app now. Enter code SPORTS during sign-up to try DraftKings for free. Don't forget, that's code SPORTS to try DraftKings for free. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Sports Radio. Fox Attitude. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Out to the phones we go. We welcome in the host of Kicking It with Crowder. His name is Tyler Crowder. Imagine that. Your name is Tyler Crowder, and you've got Crowder in the name of your show. Imagine that. That is marketing, my friend. I like it.
Thank you. I came up with it in about 5 minutes. Thank you.
Absolutely outstanding. Now, something you shouldn't take 5 minutes on is the way you set up your picks, man. Your picks are you've had a pretty good run here this fall and over the summer, man. I mean, you have lots of great betting picks, and you share a good bit of them with us and all of them on Twitter. But tell us about your record, how you've been rolling here in November and October.
Yeah. So I'm like 92 and 64 since August 1st. So a good little sample size. Football's been up and down. It's kind of been a hard year to kind of manage because of the COVID and all the cancellations and stuff, but I still am above 500. I'm 24 and 20 on podcast picks, and I'm doing pretty well on our little pick'em we're in too. So doing okay.
Doing really good stuff there. And of course, we got some games I want to go over this weekend. And let's start with Clemson and Florida State. That line started out at 29, jumped to 35 really quick. Lots of people jumping on the Tiger bandwagon there. Florida, I mean, is Florida State starting their 4-string quarterback? I mean, it seems, and I'm not being outlandish, I think that's how they're going to end up. I mean, 4-string sounds about right with everybody that's been injured.
Yeah, and FSU's had a lot of injuries, and not only injuries, just players leaving the program in general. So their quarterback they'll throw out there this weekend, Jordan Travis, he's a great athlete, but he's very one-dimensional with what he can do. He's not going to be throwing the ball down the field, but he's a great athlete, a good runner. But I think Clemson should, coming off the loss, I really feel like Clemson big in this one. 35 may be a little bit too less, if you ask me. I mean, I think it's going to be a blowout.
I agree with you, man. That's
it comes from a Florida State fan. I mean, I grew up Florida State fan, so I mean, I'm Clemson all on this one.
Yeah, it's amazing how far Florida State has fallen. We had Wes Bryant on from the ACC Digital Network the other day, and he talked a little bit with me about it, and it's just, wow. It's crazy.
It is that, and the last 6 years, it's just been unreal from where they were and where they have fallen to. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I think the Clemson needs Florida State to be good, honestly. Have that other team in the ACC. I mean, Clemson's going to be good regardless and get their love, their national love. It would be a lot better if they could have a top 5, top 10 Florida State team to go against each year in the division.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And, you know, it's interesting, though. You look at the ACC, and there's 3 teams in the top 12. You know, that's something we haven't seen in a while. But, you know,
Notre Dame.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Rob. I just think Notre Dame, ACC should do what they can to get Notre Dame into the conference full time. I really feel like this year is a step forward in that direction. They already play an ACC baseball schedule, basketball schedule. I mean, get Notre Dame into the conference full time. I think the ACC should be trying very, very hard to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. But, you know, the interesting thing, too, with the ACC championship game, you know, it could be a top 7 matchup, you know, and we haven't had that in, I think, in the history of the game. You know, coming into the conference, it was supposed to be Miami and Florida State, that's why they were put in different conferences or different divisions so that we could have that potential matchup every year. And we've never had it, but this year you could have a top 7 matchup in the ACC championship game. And for the conference, that's great.
Yeah. And we've been talking about this all year. The North Carolina Notre Dame game is so big for the ACC. If North Carolina can somehow knock Notre Dame off, then things get really interesting. I think everyone kind of wants to see the Notre Dame Clemson rematch, but I mean, that's a trap game all day for me. North Carolina on Friday night after Thanksgiving, Notre Dame. I mean, I think that North Carolina defense has not been great, but man, that's going to be a really good game for the ACC. And then, you know, setting up for the ACC title game. You know, what if Notre Dame loses and Miami sneak back into the picture? I mean, it's going to be an interesting next few weeks.
It is going to be really interesting on that front. Let's look at South Carolina for a moment here. Tyler Crowder, host of Kicking It with Crowder. Find him on Twitter at Kicking It with Crow. You've got Mizzou coming to town. They started out as a 1.5 point favorite. Now it's up to almost a touchdown for Missouri. But, you know, that line is interesting because both teams are dealing with a lack of players. I mean, Mizzou's got, I think, 55 players, 56 players, which is just 3 over the SEC minimum allowed to have a game. I mean, it is interesting to say the least on that front. But, man, do you think South Carolina's at the point where they're just going to play out the string, or should we expect a really competitive matchup in Columbia?
I mean, I really didn't know until you just said it about the Missouri kind of complications. I've just seen the spread at, -6 all week. And in my head, I'm thinking, Missouri big in this one. The players kind of being out of that game do scare me a little bit for Missouri, but as long as they're able to field a team this Saturday, I'm riding with Missouri on this one. I just think that they had South Carolina. They've lost their top 2 defensive players. Our top 2 cornerbacks have now declared for the NFL draft. So I think it's going to be tough sledding for South Carolina this weekend against a well-coached Missouri team. I'll still ride with the Mizzou train this weekend and take Mizzou minus 6.5. But I wouldn't expect to just get blown out like they have the last few weeks. I think they at least keep it close, maybe a 2-touchdown game. But I'll ride with Missouri.
All right, there's a couple other matchups I want to look at with you here this afternoon, and one of them is Ohio State at home with Indiana, and Indiana's a top 10 team. I think they're ranked 9th in the country, but Ohio State is a 21-point favorite at home. You see that, and it just pops off the page a little bit there. Can the Hoosiers keep it close at the Horseshoe?
Yeah, I really think they can. I mean, this is the best Indiana team I think I've ever seen, and they've done it in convincingly good fashion so far. I mean, they had that really close game with Penn State, but besides that, they've kind of dominated their game. Ohio State is a great football team, but in a pandemic type year where you can't have a bunch of practices and just I just like the 21 points in this one. I've vowed to myself to take Ohio State, in all these games, but I didn't think the spread would be that much. I mean, I'm thinking the spread was going to be between 15, 16, 14, 16 points. I was pretty shocked when I saw how big that spread was. So Indiana has actually, I've picked Indiana on a few games the last few weeks, and they've actually done really well for me. I'll ride with them again this weekend. I will lay the 21 points with Indiana this weekend. I expect an Ohio State victory, but I think it'll be a lot closer than people think.
That is a very interesting matchup, though. I mean, 21 points, the difference between number 3 and number 9 in the country. I know that the polls are just silly sometimes, but I mean, I think that's like, wow, tough there.
Yeah.
But one other, let's see, I've got 2 other matches I wanted to ask you about. We got Virginia Tech and Pittsburgh. Virginia Tech is a 3-point favorite in that matchup. What do you like there in the ACC?
I think Virginia Tech having these last 2 games go down to the wire with not only Miami, but they lost to Liberty at home a few weeks ago. I think this is a must-win for Fuente, the coach that they had. He's only been in his 3rd year, I think, from Memphis. This is a really big game for him. I think Virginia Tech is sitting at 4-4 now. So, I mean, this is a very big game for them. Pittsburgh has been a team that, some weeks they look very good, some weeks they look bad. I will roll with Virginia Tech in this one -3, just because I just don't trust Pittsburgh. I know Virginia Tech, took their lunch the last few weeks, but at least they've been competitive. So I'll take Virginia Tech in this one.
All right, so our final matchup that I wanted to go over with you here, Tyler Crowder, host of Kicking It with Crowder, is the matchup with Appalachian State and Coastal Carolina. Coastal's been the team this year. They're the highest-ranked Sun Belt team ever, a 4-point favorite at home over App State. When you look at the rest of their schedule, if they can win this game, they might just win out.
Yeah, and I think that South Carolina needs to really be intrigued by their head coach at Coastal Carolina. He's done a heck of a job. I think they've only been in the FBS for like 3 or 4 years. Yep. I mean, they used to be a D1 AA team. So just building this program up. And if you've watched this team, their defense is very, very good. I've watched them multiple games this year. Their defense is legit. And App State's a good program. I think that with it being in Carolina versus, being in Boone, North Carolina, where it's a little bit colder nowadays, I know the fans aren't really going to be there, but I think it'll be a little bit warmer in Coastal Carolina this weekend, Myrtle Beach. So I'll roll with Coastal Carolina. I will lay the 5.5?
4.
Yeah, 5.5.
Yeah, 5.5.
Yeah, so I'll lay the 5.5 with Carolina. I'll say Coastal Carolina by a touchdown, 27-20 against a good App State team as well.
Yeah, good stuff there, and I think that's going to be one of the better matchups throughout the country as we roll along. And I wanted to ask you about the Hawks before we got out of here. What did you think of what the Hawks did with the draft, and did you have any thoughts about Edwards going number 1 overall to the Timberwolves?
Yeah, I really thought LaMelo Ball was going to go number 1. I think Anthony Edwards has all the potential in the world. He's got a big frame, 6'5", 225. He sounds like a wide receiver that Kirby Smart could have plucked out of Georgia. But I think he chose the right sport because he got $44 million for 4 years. So I think he did pretty good. But I like the pick from the Atlanta Hawks, adding the center from USC. Still haven't learned to, pronounce his name correctly, right? So I'm not even going to embarrass myself. But he has a great story from him, played at Chino Hills High School in California with, the Ball brothers. So this guy has been on the radar for a few years, and I think the Hawks did well with what they've done the last few years, drafting point guards and wing players. Now they get the big guy to go with Capella. And I think the Hawks really can make a playoff run this year. It's going to be tough, but I think that they could be in a 6, 7, 8 seed this year. And Trae Young, look out for him this year. He's going to be on a mission. He hasn't played in a long time. We didn't see him in the bubble. So I just think Trae Young is itching to get back out there, and I think the Hawks are going to surprise some people this year.
Speaking of teams that'll surprise people, my Phoenix Suns got Chris Paul, and they've got Devin Booker. Yeah. And they didn't lose a game in the bubble. Just throwing that out there. People seem to forget that.
The Suns are another team, Rob. Suns are another team who
I'm so happy about my Suns, man. I'm so happy about my Suns doing something. So anyway. All right. Well, Tyler, tell folks where they can find your podcast, where they can find your picks on Twitter, man.
Yeah, guys, you can find my podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Kicking It with Crowder. And then also, guys, my Twitter picks I put out every week. I'll have some of those tonight dropping. So at Kick It with Pro, that's where you can find me on Twitter, and YouTube as well.
All right, Tyler, man, thanks for joining us on the Rundown, buddy. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
All right, there you go. Tyler Crowder, host of Kicking It with Crowder, helping you out with your bets this evening and some bets over the weekend. I'll give you my pick for tonight with Arizona and Seattle. We'll talk about that and a lot more in just a moment. You're listening to the Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400.
Today's job market is full of demand for skilled trade workers. Electricians, welders, mechanics, these and other trades are the backbone of every community. They're also a huge part in making sure the Army National Guard is always fulfilling its mission of service to our country and communities. Soldiers train to keep the power flowing, engines running, and supplies moving. The skilled trades these soldiers perform are the same ones needed in today's civilian workforce. Army National Guard soldiers are on the fast track to learning skills that can set them up for success at home with companies looking to hire the best. With options from plumber to helicopter mechanic and everything in between, soldiers are able to select the trades that best fit their lives. Their resumes are being built through their paid training and part-time service. Find out how you too can learn a trade profession and serve your community and country by visiting NationalGuard.com. Sponsored by the South Carolina Army National Guard. Aired by the South Carolina Broadcasters Association and this station.
When you get in your car, you need the best directions to get where you want to be.
You will arrive at your retirement in 8 years.
The same is true for your retirement. You need a voice to guide you along the way. Join Pat Struby for Save Your Retirement with Pat Struby. Pat's 18 years of experience can help make your retirement journey feel like a drive down easy street.
Arriving at your retirement.
Saturdays, 6 a.m. on Fox Sports Radio, and Saturdays at noon and Sundays at 9 on 560 WVOC for Save Your Retirement with Pat Struby.
Orangutans. They're beautiful, playful, and majestic, and disappearing. Every day, as many as 20 orangutans vanish. They starve to death when their homes are destroyed or are killed when they stray into villages in search of food. International Animal Rescue is fighting for the survival of the critically endangered orangutan. But we can't do it without you. Please visit internationalanimalrescue.org and help us save orangutans before it's too late. That's internationalanimalrescue.org.
I am Steve Smith Sr., and on my new podcast, Cut to It, we're talking to your favorite athletes.
The New Orleans Saints, Malcolm Jenkins.
How long did it take for you to take that first step to talk to a therapist?
My body felt like it was in fight or flight, and I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
iHeartRadio's #1 for podcasts, but don't take our word for it. Find Cut to It featuring Steve Smith Sr. on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Fox Sports Radio 1400. Online at foxsportsradio1400.com. On your phone with the iHeartRadio app and on hundreds of devices like Alexa, Google Home, Xbox, and Sonos. An iHeartRadio station.
Final segment of the rundown this afternoon here on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Thanks for checking us out. Follow me on Twitter. I'm at Rob Sounds Good. You can watch the show on Facebook Live. Just look for the rundown with Rob. You can also call at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. Derek Mason, the coach of Vanderbilt, was asked today about whether or not his job security was up in the air. And when you look at the numbers for Derek Mason, Vanderbilt has been really patient with him. And I'm not saying that you can actually just go and win at Vanderbilt. Make sure we put that out there. It's one of the hardest jobs in the country. The academics are tough. And I don't think a lot of SEC players in high school think, oh, you know what, I'm going to go to Vanderbilt. You end up dealing with a lot of having to develop a lot of guys. He's 27-53 in 6+ years with the Commodores, an SEC record of just 10 wins and 44 losses. They are 0-6 this year. 4 games left, and including games against Florida and Georgia. So the writing's probably on the wall there that, wow, you're not doing very good up there. But he did release the following statement. He said this at his conference today. I haven't had any conversations with anybody. They know where I'm at. I think at the end of the day, I've got a great relationship with Dr. Lee. She's been at most of our games this year. The deputy athletic directors traveled with us and got a chance to pull back the curtain a little bit and see what this year has had in store for us a little bit. I talked with the chancellor at the beginning of the season and obviously thought COVID continued to get updates on where we are. But right now, I think they're letting me do my job, and they understand week to week we're going to put the best product out there that we can. I feel comfortable about how I continue to lead this team. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go week to week preparing. This week is Florida. Like I said, I haven't had any other conversations other than our numbers and we play and can play this week. He comes across like he's completely beaten down. But I have the mentality with a guy like Derek Mason at Vanderbilt, you know that he's a good football mind. All right. He said he wanted to make Vanderbilt the Stanford of the South. Stanford puts out some pretty good football teams. Maybe he just had the capability to do better stuff at Stanford as far as getting players, etc. It's going to be hard to recruit there. But if I'm at Vanderbilt, he hasn't had any problems with players. None of the stuff that happened with James Franklin, who left Vanderbilt with players facing rape accusations and kind of left the program in a muck, to be honest. What else do you want? I don't get it. So I'm not saying give him the biggest extension in the world, but, you know, especially with the stuff that's going on with COVID-19 and how he's had games where he's had just the minimum amount of players, there we go, to actually field a team for an SEC game. Not sure what else you want from Derek Mason at Vanderbilt. It's not like they're the football power that some other schools are. You know, and Vanderbilt, let's be honest, is a baseball school. I mean, simple as that. I don't think he should get a lifetime contract, but he should definitely get a buy for what's happening for this year with COVID-19 and everything else. So, but he may be the other SEC coach that is shown the door at the end of the season. With that, though, you've got 2 good defensive-minded coaches that are going to be out there, and you got to think, especially with Will Muschamp, what's the next step for him? Where is he going to go? I mean, I don't think he's obviously got the money now where he can hang it up and, kick back. But I don't think he wants to do that. He's too competitive. I don't think anybody's going to give him another Power 5 job right off the bat, but I could see him going to, say, a non-Power 5 school, and maybe that'll work out for him. Or he could be a defensive coordinator somewhere, and that could probably help him as well. Interesting stuff there to see where these coaches go and who'll give them jobs, because obviously it wasn't the manner that he wanted to leave South Carolina, but there's still going to be some people that think, hey, Muschamp is a good defensive coach. He goes somewhere and puts a defense together, and they're pretty good. He'll be back coaching in the top, in the Power 5 before long. Maybe 3 years from now. The whole country, remember, is a section of they love the retreads. You know what I'm saying? And they'll look down the line and be like, you know what? Maybe he's fixed what he done at South Carolina, and then go from there. So it's interesting to see what will happen next with Coach Will Muschamp. Josh Pate, by the way, of 247 Sports, the host of the Late Kick with Josh Pate, will join us next Monday, this coming Monday, and we'll talk about the coaching search for South Carolina and a lot more. Don't forget about Clump Sports Talk. They are up next. Walton Swan, the czar of Clumps and Sports, will take you home. I'm Rob Sanders. Follow me on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. We'll see you tomorrow on The Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400.